Welcome to the 100 Grand Man podcast. I am your host, Reggie Lewis. This is your daily dose of politics and entertainment and how it shapes our lives. Today, I got another reaction video with News Night with Abby Phillips. And it's about the Iran kids getting killed. 168 kids, man. 14 adults. And they're not taking accountability. When all the facts are pointing towards it was them, meaning it was us. And still, the commander in chief is literally lying and spewing propaganda. Let's get into it.
Tonight, more evidence that the U.S. was likely behind the strike on that school in Iran. Iranian media says that it killed at least 168 children and 14 teachers. This video shows what experts say is a U.S. Tomahawk missile striking an Iranian Navy base right next to that school. The same day, the school was struck. This weekend, President Trump insisted it was Iran who attacked the school. And today, he appeared to somewhat back off that claim, but he still suggested that it could have been Iran.
I will say that the Tomahawk, which is one of the most powerful weapons around, is used by, is sold and used by other countries, that. Whether it's Iran or somebody else, the fact that a Tomahawk is very generic. It's sold to other countries, but that's being investigated right now.
You just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a Tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation. But Tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have Tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
But experts tell CNN the Tomahawk missiles are not generic. And while other countries like the United Kingdom and Australia do possess them, Iran does not. But Pete Hegseth is striking also a very different tone from the president on this story. Listen.
Well, we're still investigating, and that's where I'll leave it today. But what I will emphasize to you and to the world is that unlike our adversaries, the Iranians, we never target civilians.
There was a report late in the week from two officials that it was likely U.S. involvement. Is that report false?
I've already said we're investigating.
If you could tell the American public it definitively was not us, you would tell us, wouldn't you?
I would say that it's being investigated, which is the only answer I'm prepared to give.
It is a question whether they would tell us, because the president acknowledged in his comments today that he didn't know what happened. I have questions about why that is at this stage. But also, then he spins this whole false narrative about it could have been anyone, including the Iranians, because everybody has Tomahawks, when that's very much not true. I mean, if you're anyone listening to that, how can you believe that they are interested in getting to the truthful answer here?
Why? Because they're not going to tell the truth. And we need more reporters like that reporter who grilled him, because at the end of the day, he was lying. And it was obvious as hell. They're not going to admit it. Pete Hegseth is compromised. And at the end of the day, they're never going to, even if the investigation come out to prove, which we already know, the video shows it. And Abby just broke down the proof. That's one thing I love about Abby. She always speaks the truth and pulls out facts for these pundits. It was our missile. Point blank period. Iranians don't have this missile.
Well, I will not agree with Pete Hegseth that often, but I think he did give the right response in that interview that this is under investigation. It does have to be looked at. And because when something goes under investigation, especially by the Department of Defense, you have to let the investigation play out, even if there is definitive video. And I think that is important that he acknowledged that. I will say that when I was at the Department of Defense under Secretary Austin, we had a center of excellence that mitigated civilian harm. That was an office that was basically been completely gutted by Secretary Hegseth by I think like 90%. But these were civilians embedded with combatant commands, such as CENTCOM, that would launch strikes and be part of their targeting process. So I'm not saying that is why this strike happened. I think there has to be an investigation.
Why is Trump misleading about it? Because he is misleading about it.
But but I hear you. Lloyd Austin was former Commander General of CENTCOM, 4-star general, Pete Hegseth, Fox News host.
Yes, very different resumes.
Very different resumes.
Decorated military.
Very different resumes.
Decorated
There is
military
no
veteran.
one. There
Can you
is-
not acknowledge that the
there
man
is-
served?
The man served. Yes, the man served. He
Highly
definitely-
decorated.
Not in combat.
Not in combat.
Excev?
He wasn't in combat.
Iraq and Afghanistan.
I mean, the man served all three.
And he, I think, had a Bronze Star for his
But
service.
my point that I want to get back to is that there is a level of competence that the American public is thirsting for that they are not getting from Pete Hegseth. And we're seeing that. When he is up there,
And transparency.
Transparency, that's all we want. We're talking about 160 children that were killed. All we want is an honest answer that comes from you and the President of the United States. This isn't politics. This isn't Lindsey Graham versus Cory Booker. This is just tell us what we're doing, because we have 7 soldiers, as Abby corrected me last segment. We have 7 soldiers who've died. We have 160 children who've died. We understand that this is the fog of war. However, we want a level of competence from Pete Hegseth that we're not getting.
I do think that we are
What
going
is
to
incompetent
know.
about this military operation, in your opinion, in your expert opinion?
I don't. First of all, I never served, and let me
You're
start
quick
by
to say
saying
this is
that.
incompetent.
No,
I
think-
want to know what's incompetent.
No. I think Pete Hegseth is incompetent.
Why?
I think
What's
because-
happening?
Because he has an inability to tell the truth.
What did he say? What did he say that was false?
Because we know what happened.
No, we don't. They're
Well,
investigating.
I mean, look, there is.
Wait a minute,
I think,
whoa.
hold on.
No.
Hold on.
I want all of you all to go out on a limb right now and tell me that the United States, even during the fog of war, did not kill those kids. Tell me they didn't.
I don't know. They're investigating it, and I'm willing to abide by the results.
I
That
do
is,
think,
as she
I
said,
do
that's
think
the
that
right answer.
it is fine and important for there to be an investigation. I actually think Major Garrett's last question might have
Was
been
the
the
most
most
important
important,
question.
which is, if the investigation does find that we are responsible,
Would you ever know?
would you tell
So
us?
I think-
Because I think that's what, to me, when I think about the United States military and how we act on the world stage, that is one of the main things that makes us different.
Right. And I think that right now we have to assume, and I'm going to assume, that the U.S. military, because the level of these investigations are handled, is like nowhere near any political thing. My thing, I believe that the U.S. military will conduct a very fair and thorough investigation, and they will come up with the answer. I looked at the imagery myself. I think the answer is going to be that we did it, but I don't know, because I'm just looking at imagery, right?
But
Just
will
like
they
the
tell us,
Americans are.
Beth?
But I think,
I mean, I know they will do an investigation,
I
but
think
will they
that it
tell
will
us?
come out. So if the military investigators come out with that as the answer, if they do not tell the truth at that moment, if they suppress that, we know we are in a completely different ballgame.
Beth wants some bullshit. Like, girl, yeah, right, man. Miss me with that. These people are terrified to say something about this administration. It's blatant as hell. They're terrified. And the personal lapdog Scott Jennings is horrible. He never said nothing about this attack as a whole, as an organization attack. He said Pete Hegseth, which is true. The reporter literally tried his hardest to give him an olive branch. When he gave him that interview, it said, well, if y'all find out if it was us, y'all going to tell the truth, right? And he said, we're still investigating. So Scott sitting over there talking about he's a decorator. We don't give a fuck about that decorated stuff, bro. We want the truth. And at the end of the day, they're not going to spin the truth because they're always spinning some narrative about not truthful situations or truthful rhetoric. It's always a different propaganda. He's up there trying to explain to him, all we want is transparency. And Scott, Trump's personal lapdog, is sitting up because all they do is an audience of one. All he's sitting up there doing is trying his hardest to spin the narrative and say that, oh, so you're saying that the operation is incompetent? No, Pete and your damn cult leader Trump is incompetent.
I don't think anybody has faith that Pete Hegseth will stand in front of a camera and say that we did this.
But mistakes happen in war.
Did you call for the same transparency when Lloyd Austin was AWOL? He had his medical issues and was not present.
He wasn't AWOL. He had a medical issue.
And there was an investigation into that that we released.
She was there.
I was there. I was there. We released not only that investigation. We released about the withdrawal. We released about Afghanistan and Iraq.
But
we released every single investigation, and he took full accountability and responsibility for that.
Did you agree with the president when the president, after all the Afghanistan investigations, judged it to be a raging success, President Biden?
Well, I didn't say. Well, I didn't say that. He didn't say that.
But there was
he did
also
not say it was a
he
real
said it was a-
success.
he said it was a big
No,
success.
and he actually expressed the solemnity of the moment of the withdrawal
and all the failures that went into
but the commander-in-chief still thinks
that
it was
was
great.
done, and
I do not think he came out when the deaths of service members were there. When we had deaths of service members, saying it was
He checked his watch at the remains transfer, didn't he?
I mean,
First of all, Donald Trump literally was talking about ballrooms after six soldiers died and wore a hat.
I think the most important thing Hegseth said, and all Americans need to know and understand this, the difference between us and the enemy, we do not target civilians. When it happens, and it will happen in war, it is tragic and it is not meant to be. The enemy targets civilians. They hide behind civilians. They fund people who set up bases in hospitals so that civilians are in the way. That's not what we do. An investigation needs to occur. All the truth needs to be told. And we will give transparency to the American people. But there's two parts of this war, our part and the enemy. The enemy targets civilians. Look what they're doing all over the region,
but
firing
the story
missiles
doesn't
intermittently.
end there, Scott. The story is not just we don't target civilians. It is also that when mistakes happen on the battlefield, we take accountability for them.
Correct.
That's the important part.
Nobody has faith that this administration.
You're presuming a lot.
Well, no, I mean,
investigation is not over.
Listen, I started by asking the basic question: why is the president of the United States misleading about some basic information about who has Tomahawk missiles and who doesn't? Answer that.
Abby, I think the investigation is still going on. I don't know why he said people have other countries.
And then why is he saying as if it is fact
so why
when
are you
the
assuming they're not going to be honest with the American people?
Okay, so why is he stating as if it is fact when the investigation hasn't been completed that Iran was responsible?
Look, what we do know.
That's why I'm asking these questions because the president is making false statements about something that is awful.
And it's tragic. It's tragic. Period. It's an absolute tragedy.
Yes.
We also know that Iran funded people who raped and killed young girls in Israel.
Trust me, I understand that fully. And there is no equivalency between Iran's malignance on the world stage and this. And in fact, it is the opposite of an equivalency. It's actually an insistence on the United States upholding its own standards.
Just have a higher standard.
That's what it is. And listen,
we cannot. I say this all the time. You know, when you roll around with pigs, you both get dirty, but the pigs likes it, right? But we cannot drag ourselves down to that level of depravity. And all I want,
we're not.
I believe that the American public, when you have soldiers who go to battle, who die, deserve truth and honesty and accountability. And that's all I want. And I'm just saying that from my perspective, one that's naive, country boy from South Carolina, right? I don't believe Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump to be honest because they can't tell you the truth about simple things.
Can I just jump in on what Bakari is saying? Because I take your point on the honesty and transparency into what Abby's saying of like, why did the president lie about this? It's so blatant. Like if Iran had Raytheon technology, that would be a huge problem. I do think that we have to acknowledge here, Raytheon makes the Tomahawk, so I think we have to acknowledge here that Congress has a role to play, and Congress, to the questions about the Secretary's health, the questions about the Afghanistan withdrawal, they also have an oversight committee that can conduct an investigation and can demand records from the department that we also supplied during that time. So I think Congress has a voice.
Laura Ingraham.
Trump doesn't give a fuck about Congress. Excuse my language. But Trump doesn't care about no goddamn Congress. You see how his cult is? You see how, did you pay attention to these videos in this panel? Pay attention to how it's always the MAGA / Republican, always going off topic, always spinning a different narrative of saying dumb shit to try to take up for this fascist regime. Like this is terrible. Trump doesn't care about Congress. The Republicans know he don't care about them. He's going to do whatever he want, when he want, how he want. And for Scott Jennings to be sitting up there, keep trying to spin a narrative, and we all know what's their main focus when they're losing arguments or their president is looking stupid. Biden, Obama, immigration. Those three things is the three things they always try to spin a narrative on. Biden, Obama, immigration. And what did he just say? Well, Biden never said that was like Trump. great mission. Everything went well. Biden never said that. But at the end of the day, Scott want to get on TV and spew that rhetoric. You know why Trump is making the new guy the DHS? He said in the report because he looks good on TV defending him. So now we know exactly why these Republicans come on these shows and debate against Democrats and independents so they can look good for Trump to try to get a position in his army and his administration. And that's exactly what they doing. Point blank period. Abby just made him look stupid as hell. You see how she mic dropped him? She literally gave him a scenario and basically on how Trump is lying because at the end of the day, nobody it's other countries that have it, but Iran don't got it. So why is he lying? And stop spinning the narrative and stay on point because at the end of the day, he's lying. I want you guys to hit a like, subscribe to keep the channel going. Like I tell y'all every time, we're going to come at this fascist regime. We're not scared over here, and we're going to call it how we see it.
Yeah,